Hari Om. Today we will start the third chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Karma Yoga. Self-knowledge is, we can say, self-knowledge is indeed described as the highest realization in Srimad Bhagavad Gita. And in the second chapter, Bhagavan mentioned about the path of knowledge, started with the self. Who is the self? And what is the nature of the self? So the path of self-knowledge, called as Jnana, and the path of selfless actions. Bhagavan also mentioned about Karmanyeva adhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana, and those verses, the related verses, which talks about the selfless action. So the path of self-knowledge and the path of selfless action. The path of self-knowledge is the Jnana Yoga, and the path of selfless action is the Karma Yoga. And it is quite, possible, and not only possible, it's quite happening in this world. People usually get confused that the path of selfless action, the path of the knowledge, they are mutually exclusive. And the biggest knowledge that Bhagavan gives in the second chapter is the path of knowledge and the path of selfless action are not mutually exclusive. Rather, they are complementing each other. What is the path of knowledge? The path of knowledge is all about knowing the true self, realize one's own true nature, and one's own true nature as what? As the Atman, as the truth, as the Satyam, as the Satta. And that is very much distinct from the body, mind, intellect, senses. And in the second chapter, Bhagavan also mentions that the essential oneness with that Supreme, the Atman, is one and the same with the Supreme, the Brahman. Second chapter also sets the context for the Tattvamasi Tattva. As I mentioned last time also, second chapter is the complete summary, the capsule of entire Bhagavad Gita. And the subsequent chapters are basically the elaboration. So the path of knowledge, the path of selfless action. And the path of knowledge is all about realizing one's own true nature as the Atman, which is very distinct from the body, mind, intellect, senses, and also the essential oneness of the Atman with the Supreme, the Brahman. So that's where certain qualities of Sthita Prajnan, certain qualities of Jnani also mentioned in the second chapter, where the Jnana Yogi, the one who does the Jnana Yoga, the one who executes the Jnana Yoga, what are the essential qualities? Especially the renunciation of doership, the inner detachment, and the meditation on the self. These are the three emphases where Bhagavan mentioned. And Karma Yoga as a path of selfless action is basically what the discipline, what one needs to have in life. What are those disciplines? Discipline of performing one's duties, the Swadharmam, without attachment to the results. Doing the duties without attaching to the results, and you act as an instrument to that Supreme, not as an ego driven doer. So now it is clear that you take away the enjoyership, doership. Don't tag yourself with the ego driven doer, and You just act as an instrument to the divine, instrument of the divine, and execute the action. And here in the Karma Yoga, Bhagavan stresses about surrender, the prasada buddhi, sharanagati, and why you should do the Karma Yoga, essentially for purifying the mind. Purity of intention is very much needed. And when you do the Karma Yoga, what is the primordial quality which is needed? Is equanimity, is samatvam. Samatvam yoga uchyade sthita prajnatvam. So now if we understand this, the path of knowledge and the path of selfless action, one will easily understand the goal is common. Goal is common. What is that goal? Goal is realization. Goal is realizing the self. And in this process, we will become free from the ego, and also will become free from the identification with the limited self. Because you are not this limited body, mind, intellect, self, senses. So Karma Yoga is ultimately for what? Karma Yoga is ultimately for purifying the mind, Chitta Shuddhi. And how one will gain the Chitta Shuddhi? It is not a philosophy. It is practically by reducing the selfishness, practically by reducing the egoism, practically by reducing the attachment, practically by reducing the anxiety while you do the actions. So once you gain that purity in the mind, then the jnanam will illumine. That is where essentially the jnanam will illumine in the purified mind. And at that point, it is basically the direct vision of the truth. That's called as the Atma Jnana. In the 5th chapter, in the Karma Sannyasa Yogam, Bhagavan quotes this verse, 5th chapter, 4th verse. Sankhya Yoga Pradak Bala Pravadandina Pandidaha Egam Apyastida Samyak Ubhayor Vindade Bhalam. So the wise, the one who has got the realization, will never speak of Sankhya. Sankhya is what? The path of knowledge, as distinct from the Karma Yoga, the path of action or the path of selfless action. The one who has a clarity in the mind will never say that these paths are distinct. And the one who doesn't have clarity, Pradak Bala, Bala meaning the one who has not having that sort of a maturity, will only say that these two paths are different. So here Bhagavan stresses that the one who is truly established in one, either it's Karma Yoga or Jnana Yoga, obtain the fruit of both, which is essentially the same. So the supreme state attained by the Sankhya Yogi is also reached by the Karma Yogi. And the one who sees this same essence in both paths is the true seer of reality. The one who sees the same essence in both paths is the true jnani, is the true seer of reality. So now the question comes, most of us will have this question, why both paths are needed? Now Arjuna is also going to ask the same question in the beginning of Karma Yoga. And you are saying Jnanam is important. That's what Arjuna is going to ask in the first verse. In theory, one can choose Jnana Yoga alone. But the problem is, without the Karma Yogam, why Karma Yoga is needed? Karma Yoga is all about purity of mind, building purity of mind. So, without the Karma Yogam, what happens is the mind remains restless. The mind remains in the ego-centered approach. And to know that self, you need the self-inquiry, and there is the necessity of true meditation and inquiry. Correct. So, for that, the mind cannot be scattered. The mind should be gathered. So, what happens is, if the mind is not in a gathered position, the actions, right? Even if you do the karma, the actions will just become mechanical. It will not be liberating. The actions remain very much mechanical or moral. It will never liberate. And also the self-understanding, I would say the deeper understanding of the self doesn't arise. So what is really needed? The integration of action with knowledge. So when one performs all duties with the awareness of the self, the actions will become non-binding. This is called as the Jnana Karma Samanvayam, the synthesis of knowledge and action. If you go back to our second chapter, verse 48, Yogastha kuru karmani sangam tyaktva dhananjaya siddhya siddhyo samo bhutva samatvam yoga uchyate. Established in yoga, perform actions. And such actions born of knowledge. Such actions born of knowledge will become spontaneous, pure, and divine. Such actions will not be driven by the desires. Right? And such actions will flow from wisdom and compassion. See, the advice to the modern world in the context of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Karma Yogam as a way of life helps us to live in the world, fulfilling the duties, serving others, and maintaining the inner balance. Karma Yoga will help in which way? Karma Yoga will help to live in this world, fulfilling the duties, serving others, and maintain the inner balance. And Jnana Yoga, the Sankhya Yoga, helps us understand who we truly are. The truth, the consciousness behind all actions that we do. One is basically live meaningfully, fulfilling duties, serving others, maintaining inner balance, and the understanding of the true self, the consciousness which is behind all the actions. When we unite these two, the life becomes very dynamic, outwardly active and inwardly still. Let me use the example of Rajarshi Janaka. Janaka as the ideal embodiment of knowledge, who ruled a kingdom very efficiently while remaining inwardly established in the self knowledge. Rajarshi, Raja and Rishi. So Janaka Maharaja's life shows that spiritual realization doesn't require withdrawal from the world. Rather, what the story or the life of Janaka Maharaja shows is the actions, that is basically the every action getting transformed into worship, every duty getting transformed into meditation. So in such a state, what happens? The turbulence of activity will never disturb. The turbulence of the activity never disturbs the tranquility of the awareness. Like the still depth of the ocean beneath the waves. So where in the modern world it is very much needed. How to act without agitation, how to serve without attaching to the things. When I say serve, it doesn't mean that only the social service or something like that. As a family man also, or as a family person, how to serve the family members without attachment. Remain free, remain inwardly free amidst any sort of outward engagement. So in essence, we are now talking about these two paths, Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga. Let's try to understand the different aspects, such as in the Karma Yoga, what is the focus? The focus is towards selfless actions, getting rid of the selfishness and totally doing every action as selfless action, with the surrender, with the dedication to that Supreme. The focus in Karma Yoga is all about selfless action, and the focus in the Jnana Yoga is towards what? The self-realization. Selfless action in Karma Yoga and self-realization in the Jnana Yoga. And the selfless action in the Karma Yoga leads to the self-realization. And when it comes to the attitude, a Karma Yogi acts, and what should be the attitude? I am acting not for myself. And the attitude behind the action is basically what? The agency-less action. There is no kartrutva bhoktrutva. The agency-less action is the attitude of a Karma Yogi. And for a Jnana Yogi is what? I am not at all a doer. With that knowledge, I am not a doer, and in the Karma Yoga, I don't do for myself. I do this for the Lord. Agency-less action coming into picture. And what is the result? The purity of mind in a Karma Yogi. And in the Jnana Yogi is what? The freedom through knowledge. And when it comes to the Karma Yoga, Karma Yoga is basically a means to realization, and Jnana Yoga is basically the end to the realization. And Bhagavan says that Karma Yoga will lead to the Jnana Yoga, and the people who are not having the maturity to directly go to the Jnana Yoga do the karma as Karma Yoga, and you will also reach there. So, one has to harmonize the action and knowledge, and not as an opposite. Not as opposites, but as stages of the stages of one's evolution, the stages of one's spiritual evolution. So first act selflessly to purify, then know yourself to be the actionless. So here, the nature of self, that is what Bhagavan described in the second chapter. Realize I am not this body, mind, intellect, sense, ego. I am the eternal, pure, unchanging consciousness, the witness of all the experiences. That's where Bhagavan said, these experiences will come and go. Matra sparshastu gaundeya shidoshna sukha dukkada agama paino anityatam didikshusva bharata. You are the eternal, pure, unchanging consciousness which is witnessing all those experiences. Don't tag yourself with those experiences, because those experiences will drag you here and there, and it will disturb your peace of mind. Instead, you know that self and understand that I am one with that higher supreme, the infinity, the reality, which is the universal consciousness. And in the second chapter also, Bhagavan 16th verse says, Nasado vidyade bhavo na abhavo vidyade sada ubhayo ravi drishtva tattvaneyo tattvadarshi. And the unreal has no existence. So where is the question of you not existing or you killing others? The real never ceases to be. The real never goes away, because the real will always be there, whereas the unreal will not have an existence. And in the second 26th verse also, Bhagavan says, Na jayade which is his verse? Na jayade mriyadeva kadajit. Verse number 20. Na jayade mriyadeva kadajit nayam bhutva bhavida vana bhuya ajo nitya shashvadoyam purano na hanyade hanyamane sharire. So unreal will not have a permanent existence, whereas the real will always exist. So this knowledge only will remove the fundamental ignorance. So the mistake that we all are doing is the identification with the objects, the superficial identity that we have created, that I am this limited individual. So that is where the self-knowledge is very important. Self-knowledge is superior. Bhagavad Gita as a Shastram is teaching us about the self-knowledge, and that is the supreme knowledge. All worldly knowledge, whatever is it, whether it's science, medicines, any computer skills, or even the rituals, philosophies, even rituals also, all are worldly knowledge up to a great extent. And rituals will also change from time to time. All this worldly knowledge deals with the changing objects. The external world, even our mental states, the inner mental states are changing. That is where the self-knowledge is the only changeless knowledge. And the self-knowledge is the knowledge that deals with the changeless reality. Adi Shankara Bhagavad in the Gita Bhashyam says Aparavidya Avidya. What is Aparavidya? Aparavidya is all this worldly knowledge. This worldly knowledge may give us the power, status, pleasures, all those things. But they are the changing knowledge. And whereas Paravidya is what? Paravidya is basically the knowledge of the self. And Paravidya is the only knowledge that will free us from sorrow, free us from fear, free us from bondage. In Mundaka Upanishad, Vidyade Hridaya Grandhi Siddhyande Sarva Samshaya Kshiyande Chasya Karmani Tasmin Drishte Bharave. So when one realizes this Paravidya, the knowledge that frees from knowledge, from sorrow, from fear, from bondage. Srimad Bhagavata also says, Vidyade Hridaya Grandhi Chidyande Sarva Samshaya Kshiyande Chasya Karmani Drishta Evatmani Ishware. And here, Para is called as Ishwaran. Seeing the Lord within, seeing that truth within, seeing that self within as the Ishwaran. Srimad Bhagavata again says, Vadantidat Tattvavedaya Tattvam Jnana Advayam Brahmedi Paramatmedi Bhagavanidi Shabdyat. So one will elevate to peace, will elevate to abhayam, will elevate to have equanimity in life. The unshakable peace called as Shanti, the freedom from fear, abhayam, equanimity, samatvam, karunyam, compassion and love, optimism in life, social skills in life, liberation. This is the ultimate goal, the moksha, the real self-awareness. So in one way we can say that as a karma yogi, we have to do or balance this, right? Where the balance is all about dealing with the vyavaharika dharma and the paramarthika dharma. Pravritti, nivritti, samanvayam, law of integration. When we integrate these two, our limited view in life will come down. When I say limited view will come down, we ourselves will equip us to have more affinities. When I say affinities, the multiple affinities, whether it is social skills, whether it is liberation, whether it is compassion, whether it is equanimity, whether it is unshakable peace. When one does the real integration of vyavaharika and paramarthika dharma, that sets the stage for exploring the highest potential in an individual, the highest potential in all of us. So in that context, the question that we all have to ask is, so can I run away from my duties? Can I neglect my own duties? So that is where Gita gives a very straight answer. Bhagavan says that neglecting one's own duty or swadharmam, even with the intent of renunciation, is a misunderstanding. So what has to be done? engage in selfless actions while remaining unattached. Engage in the selfless action and you remain unattached. That will lead you to the true liberation. So, self-knowledge is the supreme state. Self-knowledge is supreme for what? Self-knowledge is supreme for inner freedom. And why the selfless action is needed? Selfless action is essential for the purification. Selfless action is very much needed for the social harmony. Not only that, guiding others to the right path. And wise will always continue to act. And I say the Janaka as a Rajarshi, wise will always continue to act, not out of the personal desires, but for what? But for the greater goal. In Vedantic term, Loga Sangraham. And not only for Loga Sangraham, also for uplifting others to show them as the true role models. If we go to third chapter, 21st verse, Yad yadacharati shreshta tad tadevataro jana sayat pramanam kurude logas tadanuvartade. So it is very clear that knowledge and actions are complementary. So here actions will prepare one for the knowledge, and knowledge purifies and sanctifies our action. So what is the destination of both tracks? Self-knowledge. Self-knowledge is the destination. And Karma Yoga, we can say, I don't know whether it is right to say, but still, Karma Yoga is the vehicle to take us to that destination. But what is the destination? Self-knowledge. Karma Yoga is what? Karma Yoga is the vehicle or upadhi to take us to that destination. So in the third chapter again is setting the context. Knowledge to action. And in the chapter 2, if we all remember, chapter 2 concluded with the vision of a wise person. You all remember, right? The Siddha-prajna, the serene, detached and self-centered Jnani. So now Arjuna is confused. If wisdom, if jnanam and renunciation are supreme or superior, then why should I act? If knowledge is greater, if knowledge is superior than action, then why should I engage in this battle where I am not interested? This is a classical dilemma that we all have in life, right? Should I withdraw from action for peace or act in the world without bondage? Which path is easy? Can I do a shortcut? Can I be spiritual? So otherwise also the question will come, can I be spiritual and still active in this world? So can I shortcut or short circuit Karma Yoga and go to Jnana Yoga? So there is no short circuit or shortcut. And the question to, can I be spiritual and still active in the world? The answer is yes. Because action is not a problem. Only the problem is attachment. With that, we will start the Karma Yoga, chapter 3, Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna Uvacha Jayasi Chet Karmanaste Mada Buddhir Janardhana Tata Kim Karmani Khorema Niyojayasi Kesava Vyamishreneva Vakyena बुद्धिं मोहयसीव मे तदेकं वद निश्चित्य येन श्रेयोऽहमाप्नुयाम् जायसी चेद कर्मणस्ते मदा बुद्धिर्जनार्दन तद किम कर्मणि घोरे मां नियोजयसि केशव व्यामिश्रेणेव वाक्येन बुद्धिं मोहयसि इव मे तत् एकं वद निश्चित्य येन श्रेय अहम आपनुयाम. So now Arjuna is asking, hey Janardhana, oh Janardhana, if you consider jnana, the knowledge of the self, to be superior to action, then why are you making me engage in this dreadful deed? Karmani khori, dreadful deed. Oh, Kesha. Vyamishreneva vakyena buddhim moha yasiva me tadegam vada nischitya yena shreyoham apniyam. So now you are confusing me, confusing my mind with the words that appears contradictory. So please tell me with certainty, please tell me with clarity, with certainty, the one path. By pursuing that path, I may attain supreme well-being. See here, Arjuna uses the term khora, karmani khora, terrible, very dreadful. See why this question is coming, because if you see the second chapter ending, Yasha Brahmi Sthiti Partha Nainam Prapya Vimuhyadi Stitvasyam Andagalevi Brahma Nirvana Urchadi. So the way of life with the deep self-knowledge, a steady mind that is guided by the intellect, the being is Brahman, the one who is not deluded by anything. You aim for that. Be calm and detached. Now, Bhagavan Krishna is saying, with all those qualities, now pick up your bow and fight. It's quite paradoxical. Forget about Arjuna. See, we all have this kind of practical dilemmas in life, right? I want peace of mind. Sometimes we think, why to run after, why to chase all those things. Let me be peaceful in life. But I also want promotion. I also want success. I also want recognition. I also want followers, whether it is YouTube or whatever it is, right? I want recognition in life. I want success. I want power. I want money. I want promotion. Not only that, these days, I want 10k steps a day, per day. All those things. I want at the end of the day peace of mind also. Right? So now the life's contradictions. Right? If you say, if you deal Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga as different paths, contradictory paths, then it is a problem. So Bhagavan Krishna says, not to Arjuna, to us, that you can be peaceful in life, we can also engage in this world, but you need to have this knowledge. With that knowledge, you engage in this world. So now our Arjuna is thinking, now most of us also will think, if knowledge is better, then why should I fight? And Arjuna's logic is very simple. Because at the end, what is the goal? Self-knowledge, that wisdom, right? And if that wisdom is superior, then why should I undergo or undertake this? Let me sit under a tree. Let me do a meditation after sitting under a tree. Sometimes we also put this logic, right? Why do I need to work hard, serve others? And ultimately what we are trying to do, we are trying to have inner peace. So Bhagavan is very, very clear. You need to be peaceful in life, and you need the true peace by not running away from duties, but by performing them without what? Without attachment. So now the question is, I want to meditate for inner peace, but my build is urging me to check the emails and WhatsApp every 1 minute. I want to be peaceful, I want to meditate. And why to meditate? For the inner peace, inner calm. But my mind is always urging me to check my emails every minute, every minute WhatsApp also. And not only when I am not performing meditation, even performing meditation also my mind is sick. This is a very problematic condition. Or sometimes our mind will say, yeah, let me skip it, I will not. Out of frustration or out of helplessness, sometimes the mind will say, I will not act. And Bhagavan says, you please be mindful here also. Even deciding not to act is also an action. Now what will happen if Bhagavan Krishna is allowing Arjuna, okay, the path of wisdom is superior, I don't want to fight. What would have happened? Arjuna would have retired, will go to Himalayas. But will his mind allow him to settle down? Because his build is not that. Now Bhagavan Krishna is saying us, you cannot escape the actions. What you can do? Simple. You just divinize it, you just spiritualize your actions. We cannot consider action and knowledge as opposites. So here Arjuna is still thinking that the action and knowledge are opposites. Now Bhagavan says, do your duties, do your swadharmam fully, sincerely, and you stay inwardly free. It's applicable to all of us. You fulfill your duties, but you stay inwardly free. You work in office, you have to deal your family, you have to deal with the social life. These all are the elements of the battlefield of Karma Yoga. Your office, your family, your social work, your identities that you have taken in this world, all can become your battlefield of Karma Yoga. But you have to do your duties fully, not even any escapism, but you stay inwardly free. So our Arjuna is having this confusion. We all usually have this. So the confusion is not a problem. Confusion is always good. Confusion is the beginning of the wisdom, if you question sincerely. If Arjuna did not have this confusion, probably Bhagavad Gita would not have Bhagavad Gita would not have been elaborated to 18 chapters. At the second chapter itself, the Gita Shastram would have reached the end. So Arjuna's honest confusion becomes the doorway to the divine teaching, doorway to the wisdom. So whenever we feel torn between spiritual and worldly duties, let's have this question in our mind and ask this to the God. Sometimes, life gives lot of struggles to us. When this kind of a situation comes to us, let us be Arjuna. Like Arjuna asked this question, Jayasi ched karmanaste mada buddhir janardhana tadakim karmani khore mam yojasi kesam. Vyamistreneva vakyena buddhim mohayasi vame tadegam vada nischitya yena shreya aham apnuya. So the response of Bhagavan Krishna sets the stage for understanding why action or why karma yoga is not opposed to the knowledge, but the karma yoga, the real selfless action, is a stepping stone for the Jnana Yoga. So how will we create freedom in life? Through karma yoga? Very simple. The problem is what? Attachment. The problem is what? The agency oriented action, which claims this doership. Correct? So what we should do? When we write with pencil, we usually use the eraser. So here the freedom when we do the karma yoga means use the eraser. Whenever the doership, enjoyership is coming, erase that, erase that, erase that. Whenever ego is playing to claim the doership, enjoyership, etc., just use this knowledge as an eraser. Erase it. Let the ego create it, you immediately erase it. So then the karma yoga will become, though when I said the stepping stone, ultimately this erasing the ego ultimately creates the freedom. That's where Bhagavan says, Sri Bhagavan Ovaja Lokesmin Divita Nishta Pura Prokta Mayanakha Jnana Yogena Sankhyanam Karma Yogena Yoginam. Hey Arjuna, in this world I have declared two paths. Right? What are those two paths? The path of knowledge, abidance in the self. The path of knowledge for whom? The path of knowledge for the Sankhya. The path of knowledge for the matured people. The path of knowledge for the Sankhya Yogi. Sankhya, let us use this. The path of knowledge who has the abidance in the self. There is a first path. Dvivita Nishta. There are two paths. In the logam, in the world, I have declared two paths. And when we say path, the term Nishta is coming. Very, very profound. We'll come to that. The first path is what? The path of knowledge, abidance in the self for the contemplative people, the Sankhya, who are matured. And the second path is what? The path of selfless action, who are inclined to do the actions, whose build is to do the action. The path of selfless action as the second. For the active people, for the people who are inclined to do the actions, Bhagavan calls them as the yogi. Jnana Yogena Sankhyanam, Karma Yogena Yoginam. Sankhyan and Yogi. And Bhagavan calls him Prokta Mayanaka, the one, the sinless one. Hey Arjuna, please understand that there are only two paths. The path of knowledge, the path of selfless action. The path of knowledge is for whom? The contemplatives, the Sankhya, who are matured. The path of selfless action is for what? For whom? For the active people who are inclined to actions, I call them as yogis. And this is a nishta, very important. The inner establishment is called as the nishta. It is not about the outward execution or the way of execution. The whole game is the nishta, the inner establishment, the discipline, the characteristics, the attributes. When we say the attributes, the knowledge that one is building or one is having. That is why it's called nishta. If you remember in the second chapter, buddhiyukto jahadiha ube sugrata dushkirde tasmad yogaya yujvasva yoga karmasu kaushalam. So therefore I am saying tasmad yogaya yujvasva yoga karmasu kaushalam. I say yogam as the karma kaushalam. I say yogam as a nishta. So here, what is the nature of Arjuna? Let us think from Arjuna's perspective. What is the nature of Arjuna? Who is Arjuna? What is the dominant characteristic of a person like Arjuna? Who is Arjuna? He is a yodha who is supposed to do the action. You are supposed to fight for justice. And for such a person, how the freedom in life will come? That person should walk the path of karma to become freedom in life. So that person should walk the path of karma yogam to make freedom in life. That person should walk the path of karma yogam to the self-realization, so called as the Jnana Yoga. So a Sankhya is the one who a renunciate, whose whole energy is devoted to abiding in one's self. And who is a yogi? Yogi is the one who know the art of transferring their actions as yoga. How they transfer or transform? By offering the fruit of action to the Lord. They use this eraser. Whenever the agency comes into picture, they erase. And by default, they offer the fruit of action to the Supreme, to the higher truth. And they remove this agency by the eraser. Whenever ego pops up, they will erase it. So in this action, in this way, what will happen? They attain the inner purity. And once they attain the inner purity, they will lead to the self-realization. So now, this is very clear. Which path should I take? What is the answer here? Follow the path. Either there are only two paths. This is not what I am saying. Bhagavan says that Logesmin Dividha Nishta Pura Prokta Mayanaka Jnana Yogena Sankhyanam Karma Yogena Yogin. There are only two paths. So the answer is follow the path that suits your nature, not somebody else. Follow the path that suits your nature. So here the question is, can Arjuna skip karma and go directly to enlightenment? No. That's what Bhagavan says, sorry dear, no. No instant shortcut, or no, you cannot have an instant moksha. There is no such application in mobile available. Directly you can open the app and get that enlightenment. So, and otherwise also I ask this question, can Arjuna renounce the fight? No, because the mind of Arjuna will be restless. There will be restlessness in Arjuna. So the real renunciation is not by running away. The real renunciation is coming through the inner detachment. It is not a physical withdrawal. So the answer is basically follow the path that suits your nature. And if you think that, renunciation is the way, it is not about any physical withdrawal. Renunciation is all about the inner detachment, not the physical kind of a withdrawal. Right? See, even in the modern world, people say, I'm leaving my job and I'm going for a spiritual tour. I'm going alone and I will go to Himalaya. I'm leaving my job. After reaching Himalaya, you will get frustrated because the Wi-Fi connection is bad, your internet is bad. Your mind will not leave you. Very, very simple. How a karma yogi should live, and what is the goal of a karma yogi. So here we have teachers, doctors, professionals. So what is karma yoga for a doctor? A doctor treating patients selflessly. A teacher imparting knowledge sincerely. Or a parent, guide your children without ego. All are the karma yoga, because there is no agency claimed. Without attachment to the results, the actions which are done selflessly, not selfishly. And also the attitude not to have the agency creation. The attitude towards work as a worship. The attitude towards work as not a stain gathering endeavor. When I say stain gathering, the karma always creates stains such as attachment, aversion, enjoyship, doership. Always have the eraser of jnanam. Remove it. Remove that ajnanam through jnanam. Otherwise, what happens? The actions will be selfish motive. It will bind. So here, action should be selfless. It should be done as a worship that purifies the mind and ultimately liberates us. And actions are unavoidable for the ones whose build is to act. Never try to run away. That's what Bhagavan says. Logesmin divida anishta pura prokta mayanaka jnana yogena sankhyanam karma yogena yoginam. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vishishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha. Kayena Vacha Manasendriyarva Buddhyatmana Va Prakriti Swabhava Karomi Yadyat Sakalam Parasmai Sarvam Narayanayet Samarpayami. Sarvam Narayanayet Samarpayami. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.